and I'm here with Coach Bailey, and I'm sorry, Coach, I didn't catch your name.
Cotter.
Coach Connor. Awesome. So first off, how you guys doing today?
Good.
Yeah, just got off the golf course, so pretty beautiful day.
Awesome. Let me start out by asking, how did both of you guys get into wrestling?
I wrestled under both of the Countryman brothers. So Jordan was my club coach. Tyler Countryman was my high school coach. But my ninth grade year was the first year that my high school offered wrestling, and it was one of those inaugural seasons, and it was something that I had never done before. And one of my friends, we were talking in the hallway, and I was like, "Hey, you want to go try out?" And he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And we were actually one of the few that made it from our freshman year to our senior year. A lot of people came in and realized that this sport was much harder than what they anticipated. So they were like one and done, and then there was a handful of us that actually made it all the way through our senior year.
So I wrestled for a few years at Hoover, and then I stopped about my sophomore year. Then I got into coaching, and I played rugby in college. And so when my first coaching gig, I was coaching football, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to be the head wrestling coach?" And I was like, "I don't really know a ton. I wrestled a little bit." And they're like, "Okay, well, we're going to shut the program down if we can't get a head coach." So I stepped in, took the head coaching job, pretty much knew jack about wrestling at the time, and learned as much as I could. And then I had a great assistant coaching staff, and we did pretty well. And then I kind of jumped from there to Hewitt-Trussville, and from Hewitt-Trussville I made it way to Auburn, and then became the head coach. And now it's like I can't think about coaching anything else. So
That's awesome. So both of you guys coached under, Coach Spencer. He was a really good coach. What did you guys learn from, coaching under him?
Mainly, Coach Spencer was a great, so Auburn, the university, there's always the joke about being Auburn family, but it exists in this whole community. And so one of the big things I learned about when I got here was Coach Spencer is when you think about Auburn family, that's him. He every kid on the team, he knew everything about them. He knew their families. He coached their aunts or uncles or whatever in whatever sport. He's coached their brother and sister. So he kind of had always this we jokingly, Coach Cotter and I always called him Dad. And so we always that's literally what he was. He was the dad of the program. And so that's really he was a great facilitator of that program and building kind of the base foundation that we kind of carry on today.
Yeah, I feel like it actually became kind of statewide known that he was like our dad. We'd go to tournaments, and one of the referees would be like, "Oh, Dad let y'all go out?" I'm like, "Yeah, the kids are out to play this weekend." So if we ever went on a trip where it was just me and Bailey, then it was we knew the questions were out to be, "Where's Dad?"
Awesome. Now I will say that I wrestled 7A, and I would say Auburn had a really successful run, at least while I was there. What are some of the key success that you guys have as a program?
The main thing that I think that Auburn has that benefits us very much is it's our numbers. We have a really good top to bottom, we're over 100 kids at this point, and we always have more. Right now we're in another kick of we thought COVID would bring us down. COVID, we had about 75 from top to bottom, which is pretty good. But then right now, even this year, we just started off-season workouts, and I have 15 new ninth graders already out, just coming in, wanting to wrestle. Kind of giving one of the things that we try to do really well is we try to have the best looking gear and promote ourselves really well on social media, because it's really easy to sell hey, we have the best looking gear, you should come join wrestling. And then if we can get them out, we always joke around, if you give us 2 weeks with us, we promise that you're going to be yeah, I want to wrestle. And even this season, we had 3 or 4 first-time wrestlers that now they're wrestling year round, and they pretty much have no interest in any other sport, because the way that we're trying to sell that program, which is kind of be this premier academic / student athlete. We have a lot of fun, we're a young coaching staff, a really young coaching staff. So, we take time to play games all the time. We joke around with the kids a lot. But it's we still have a pretty good maintained level of respect as far as making sure we don't cross that border of them being oh, they're just a bro like us. But we have a lot of fun, just goofing off with the kids. We wrestle them a lot, all that good stuff. So
One of the things that I feel like made me successful too was the fact that I did go to off season. I had a club team that I was a part of, and we've really been pushing that. We try to tell the guys all the time that that's what makes all these Birmingham schools so successful is that they have 3 or 4 different clubs that they can go to, and we've finally been able to. One of our former athletes, his dad has now opened up a club here in Auburn, so it's really hopefully in the next few years, you'll see a lot more success on top of what we've already had with us and Smith Station and Central and all these other schools that are in the surrounding areas that will be able to take advantage of this club.
And that'll feed into my next question. Well, you guys are getting Auburn takedown. It's been around for, I would say, at least I was in club, but I think it's getting bigger. What are some of the benefits of having a feeder club program like that in the area now?
Well, this is the first year that we really saw like a direct benefit to us. They've been around, but they practice like out of our school system, and then that kind of got thrown in a rut because we had some weird stuff with like using our facilities as a non-school thing. And so luckily, Coach Clem was able to like secure like a really nice building, and he's put a lot of money into it. And it is like, I mean, it's top-notch facility. I love going there and like hanging out and like seeing all the stuff. He's got a really good coach and Coach Hawk, who taught at the Granby School. So he's kind of like a hardcore Wisconsin guy. And so you're kind of seeing a lot of this, you're seeing a little bit more different style. Like one of the big things that we always talked about in Auburn, that was the kind of our downfall. Like when you look at really top tier programs, they have a style of wrestling. And Auburn was always kind of like, each of us kind of had our own thing, but now we've started focusing on certain things that we want our wrestlers to do. Like one of the big things that we emphasized this year, we've always been a legs, kind of a legs team. So we're real big into crossbody rides. But like the big thing that this year that we started doing is like we want to be on top as much as possible. So like we're like essentially purposely not choosing bottom as much as possible to kind of like get that hammer mentality. And like one of the big things is like when you're wrestling a Thompson or a Vestavia, where it's going to matter is on your feet in neutral. And so like really establishing what our style from neutral is going to look like. I mean, like most people know like Vestavia has that 2-on-1 baseball bat they like to go to. Thompson's just going to be aggressive, like out the gate with really hard hand fighting into like quick shots. And so us figuring out like, okay, how are we going to do? And like the main thing that Coach Cotter focuses on is kind of this, I mean, funk is the best way I can describe it. Like he's a scramble wrestler. Like I joke around with Cotter all the time that it's just a glorified, it's glorified stalling to me, but if that's how he wants to wrestle. But a lot of like, instead of us like sprawling all the time, like we're always trying to score off of our like, like sit-ins and step outs, like peek arounds, like anything that we can do to kind of score off of that and kind of like dictate that.
And then you mentioned COVID, and did COVID really affect you guys as a team this year?
Yeah. So I went on through this school year, I've been on 3 different quarantines. 2 of them were during wrestling season. I got out of one, took a trip to Hewitt with the team, and immediately got put back into another one. So yeah, it definitely affected us because the first one, like Bo will call me and Tanner, who's the other assistant coach, he'll call us the technicians. And because we were about the same weight, we wrestled the same positive case that day. So we wrestled them for about an hour, and they're like, yeah, y'all got to go home. So that could have put a 2-week kind of not pause this season, but it was different. And then we actually, when all of us, because Bo got put into the second quarantine that I was in, we actually had to put a 2-week halt on the season. So we got through it the best that we could. And at the end of the season, I feel like it was a success because we made it state. We did the whole season, because at the beginning of the year, if you would have told me that we would have made it through the entire season, I would have told you there's no way. Like wrestling, there's no way you can social distance. So it did affect it, but I felt like the state did the best that they could in making it work, and that we did the best that we could in making it work. And like I said, I feel like it was a success.
Yeah, it became kind of like a learn how to play the game, where like we essentially, one of the things that we did, we kept them in trios and they couldn't rotate out of their trios. And so that effectively, like if we got quarantined of one kid, it only took the trio, and we kept starters off the same mats, so that we try to like dodge as much as possible. And that's really where our numbers came in, because like if we did have a positive case, which luckily we didn't during dual season, but we had some like happen, but we had guys that we had on other mats that could step in. Now they're not like, like your starter wrestlers, but at least we could fill that weight class, which, in 7A, like you can't forfeit a weight class and give up that 6. Like it's just not, it's not good for your team. as far as points go. And so the other thing is like I got it when we went to Hewitt. I got COVID, and then we had to shut down for 2 weeks, which kind of killed our holiday. We had a couple things. We were gonna go down to Gulf Shores with Spain Park and Baker and some of them and Gulf Shores, but that kind of halted that. But luckily, it wasn't too bad. It kind of gave us the time to rest. We were kind of beat up, and then the weird part was coming right back, and then we wrestled our entire region duel in like 5 days.
Yeah.
So it was pretty brutal. Like I'm glad that we kind of had that 2-week break, because when we came back, it was like we had one practice, make sure everybody's on weight, and then we wrestled literally 5 straight days for what mattered. So I think it kind of like helped us a little bit in a way, because I mean, as you know, like the season is long, like, and people don't understand that with wrestling is like it's not just on the players, it's on the coaches long. And like, by the time that February hits, like you're dragging, like me and Corey always talk about, like, we love each other at the beginning. And by the time February hits, like both of us are like, please go away. Like, I just don't want to talk to anybody anymore. And like, I think with like the dual setup this year, like me and some other coaches are talking about it. I kind of hope that we keep a lot of this dual oriented stuff, because I think it's good for the sport in the way that like giving the whole team time to like participate, and like you're not really waiting on mats or bouncing from mat to mat or anything like that. It's just kind of like you're wrestling 14, then you're wrestling another 14. And like my Saturdays, like, I mean, you're back by like 1 wherever we were. And like for Auburn, that's huge, because we travel 2 hours to get to Birmingham, 2 hours back. If the tournament ends at 3, we're not back to like 5 or 6, and your whole Saturday is probably shot. You're exhausted by the time you get home. So like having that dual season kind of like let us like ease into the season, give some guys some matches. And then by the time state and stuff was rolling around, we had a lot of like what felt like fresher wrestlers.
Okay, so now I have a segment on my Instagram where I get coaches to weigh in on the hot topics. So I've got 3 questions for you guys. One is, I just lost it. Oh, should there be one division or multiple divisions when it comes to high school state?
Okay, so this is actually because of the fact that I went to a smaller school. So I graduated with 50 kids. There will be like, there's an argument for both, because if you go to California, like if you're a state champion in California, you're the state champion. I feel like you could have an argument on both sides, but for the growth of the sport in Alabama, especially if you're in a smaller school, it is harder to get kids to come out and wrestle. And especially if you're talking about competing against basketball, which is wrestling mainly the competitive sport, it's hard to get people to come out and try out for wrestling if they're thinking about basketball or something like that, where there are 7 classifications. Because even with wrestling, where there's essentially 3, you think, oh, it's harder, like I will have to be wrestling people from higher classifications, especially with the private school rule where it's 1 and 1.5. And then now there's a rule that if your school is very successful, you have to bump another classification, even though you're probably a 2A school, you'd have to jump to 4A or 5A or whatever it is. So I can see where if they're at the end of the season, if there was a best of the best tournament, I feel like that would be a good thing for Alabama. And it doesn't have to be sanctioned by the AHSA. Just let's see which is the best division or the best wrestler from each weight class, and have that kind of tournament. But I feel like for the growth of the sport in Alabama, it needs to stay. I feel like last year was pretty good with the 1A through 4A and 5A and 6A together, and then 7A. And then hopefully as the sport grows, then it can even get classified, even break it down even more.
Yeah, and then like I know like last year we talked about we were gonna if COVID hadn't hit, we were talking about trying to host a best of the best tournament down in Auburn and just try to get all the state champions. And like that's where it gets weird, because then you're like, well, in like 7A we only place 4, and then like and all the other ones they're like placing down to 8, and so like where does the cutoff come and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, like it's like whatever's going to grow the sport is the best thing for us. I think one classification, it has like its benefits, and like you get a clear champion. That's the best. That's the best benefit of it. Because there's always that, like at the end of the day, you're always like, oh, well, I always hear like, 6 and 5A coaches like, oh, like we have the hardest thing. And I'm like, there's some really good schools in 5 and 6A, but like, I mean, like, I think 7A is very, very strong, like across the board. I mean, like, I think that like you're talking about like, you're getting a really good pool of athletes in 7A. And so at the end of the day, like Thompson has been a top dog, Vestavia has been a top dog. Like when we go wrestle, like like we wrestled Arab this year and lost to him by like 6 or something like that with, not necessarily all of our starters there. Not that they had all their starters there either. But what I'm saying is like, I don't think it's as apples and oranges as like people make it out to be. Like it's not, I would like to see us more of have like a champions contenders type of thing where you have starting programs with like smaller numbers. Maybe they're in one division and then you have like guys who teams that want to compete at the top level. Because I feel like wrestlers, like you want to know, right? Like I don't want to, it's weird, right? Like when you get that guy, if you have a really good 145 and the 6A school has a really good 145, you don't always want to see that. You like some coaches shy away from that matchup. And I feel like, I think that's just like a different mentality. Like we're like, yeah, let's like, I don't care if he's the top kid in Georgia, let's wrestle him. Like, let's see what happens. Like, let's make it play out.
For sure, for sure. And then my next question is going to be, should clubs be able to practice year round?
Yes, absolutely.
It's the biggest thing that's holding us back. The fact that I coached baseball for a little bit. The fact that I can go to a hitting coach and pretty much like play travel ball and like all that stuff year round and like essentially be playing baseball, but then like we get to wrestling and you're like, oh, you can't club season. Like that is, especially for like smaller schools that don't have a coach maybe that's wrestling oriented. Like we're lucky. Like we have some solid coaching staffs at Auburn as far as like wrestling goes. Like I would say that we are, when you get to 7A, there's a lot of coaches that, like they mostly, but you meet some of these like lower division, like they're football coaches that are just helping with wrestling as best they can. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's how I started out. But at the end of the day, like if you have access to go to like Warrior Club or Ironclad or something like that, and we're not like using it, Auburn Takedown, like if you're not allowing those kids to go there and get the extra coaching that they want to be the best at that sport, like we're disservicing that child because like they should be able to go wrestle at the next level if they want to.
And like all the rules are put in place where like the club's not affiliated with us at all, like obviously for any program. So I really don't see like where we can make this line of, even though coaches aren't allowed to be on the mat, like we can go and watch, but we can't be on the mat. They're not getting any of our instruction or our techniques or anything like that. Why is it that club right when season starts we can't allow it? Like it's not coming from us. It's not our extra. We're not bringing like a feeder system in where we're coaching younger kids, trying to show them everything that we're doing. Like why does this have to be the drawing line?
And then the stupidity of the one-on-one, but you can still go to wrestling club if it's one-on-one. And I'm like, just let like a whole class come in. Like if you're worried about cross-contamination as far as like, and I'm not talking about COVID, I'm talking about like if you're worried about, in our case, if Opelika and Smiths and Central had kids there and we had kids there, now it's like they're practicing together. Who cares? Like it's not like these kids don't go to football camps and then like they're practicing with our travel ball and playing with, like that's what I'm saying. Like it's like for wrestling it matters, but for every other sport they're like, well, that's baseball. And you're like, well, this is wrestling. Like, and so like let us do what we need to do.
So where would you find the argument that most people like I use this as an example. I don't know because I'm not from this area, but let's say like a Beauregard doesn't have a club that's super nearby. Where would you find the argument? Or maybe just any school doesn't have access to a club. Where would you argue that they should still be able to do club year round?
You get a parent volunteer and they practice out of your facility. I mean, like you do whatever you need to do. If you want to compete, there's a way to compete. And I feel like if a school system, like that's the hard part, right? Like some schools just don't care about being good at wrestling. Like they may have a program and they could care less if their team's good or not. That's a school problem or a policy, in my opinion. Like at Auburn, like, we made the Final Four this year and my AD came up to me and was like, what's it going to take to get you to the championship? And I was like, I'm going to need this, this, and this. And he's like, all right. But like, that's the first time that we've had that conversation but like we always joke around. I came from Hoover and I was in the two-a-days era and all that stuff. And I tell people all the time, like they always ask me like, oh, what's the big thing? And I'm like, the difference is at Hoover, like winning was like brought to you from a childhood. Like, I mean, Rush Probst came to our Pee Wee practice and handed our dads a playbook and said, this is what you're going to run. And like, he allowed us like that system to grow. So by the time we were seniors, we've been running the same playbook for like 7 years. It's a feeder system. And I tell people like, it may feel like, oh, well, not everybody can do that. But if you want to win, like your system will put it in place to do that. Like you can't just bank on like everybody being able to hire a good coach or everybody having the access. So give them the tools that they can get to that'll make them the best. And I mean, like there's plenty of guys that would literally coach a club for, I mean, like it's not like we make a ton of money coaching wrestling year round. Like who cares if like a coach is comes off the board and like does it year round and makes a little extra cash on the side. I mean, baseball and stuff like that, they run clinics out of their own thing and pay themselves. And you're just like, but wrestling, we can't do that.
This year we had girls wrestling for the first time, and I know you guys had a girls wrestler do very well at that. Where do you think Alabama needs to go in the direction of girls wrestling in the near future?
Well, I'm on the state committee for the girls wrestling, so I'm on that team. I'm all for it. I'm from I lived in Wisconsin. I have family in Wisconsin. My god niece is like one of the best wrestlers in Wisconsin as far as females go, and so I've always been real big into like pushing it. The main problem I have is like in any other sport, if a girl wanted to do it, like she would have to compete with guys, and that's fine. But then they always make a sport, it feels like, for them, like girls basketball or softball or whatever, and like they're different games. Girls wrestling is no different. The big thing that I try to sell to coaches, my big push, I guess, like my part in this whole committee, is letting them understand that right now, if you have a daughter and you wanted to go to college for free and play a sport, there's two options. She can wrestle or she can play golf. Like those are the best two options she can have. And that's a free college ride. It may not be to the most, but like, here's the problem. It's not going to be a Division I college right now because we're not pushing it. But now with like Oklahoma State and Iowa saying that they are heavily thinking about girls wrestling, that is huge. And then you think about Auburn, who has a huge, rich wrestling history with like Sweet Umbach and like all that stuff. If we get girls wrestling back, I guarantee you, like with Title IX, if you talk about sports and how cheap they are, wrestling, you got to buy 2 mats and put it in a facility you already own and then like pay some traveling fees and like you suddenly have a girls sport. Like that is a really cheap sell for a girls sport program. I think about like where I went to college, North Alabama, like they would jump right on to girls wrestling because they already have the facilities to do it. And it's not a huge investment on it. But right now they have like things like rifle team and stuff like that. Like no one's going to go watch rifle team, but like suddenly if you have girls wrestling, like at a SEC stadium, like I think about how big our gymnastics pool and stuff like that, like suddenly it's huge. And I tell them like, if girls wrestling becomes huge and like breaks open, then suddenly all those complaints that we have about like not having the space, not having enough coaches, all the complaints that we hear all the time, that becomes a thing because like if you have a girls, you've got to have another coach for the girls coach. You've got to have the facilities to have a team that's like multiple things. Suddenly like you've got 2 wrestling rooms, you've got 2 locker rooms, you've got all this stuff. I'm like, suddenly all this money is going to start flooding in the program. And I coached softball one time, and you want to talk about fundraising, those female sports will raise way more money than male sports. Like those parents get gung-ho about it. So like, it's just a better option for all of us. And those girls deserve to compete. Like our girls have been wrestling with us for 4 and 3 years, respectively. And they practice just as hard as all of our guys. They don't shy away from anything. They practice with the guys. Our guys love them. And then like for them to get to go out there and like watch them, Fabiola Sanchez, our 130 winning a state championship, watching her hard work pay off, knowing that she hurt herself wrestling and wrestling guys. I mean, like that, it wasn't against other girls. And like for her to be out there and go out and win a state championship, it just like meant the world to her. And like our whole community is like really big into it now. Like the mayor gave us like a whole like recognition for it. And so now I've got we went from having about 4 girls, I think we've got about 10 now. So, and like without recruiting, like that was just word of mouth. And, we're about to like start recruiting and going after it hard. The whole point is to have 40 girls by next season.
And that'll feed into my next question. What is probably the hardest, if there is, what would be some of the major differences between coaching female wrestling and guy wrestling in the state of Alabama?
I don't know if I really I just do it the same. I don't know if it's really been any different. Show a move, and then so the way we broke it down this year was actually great because one of the assistant coaches, he was an All-American at Duke, so hands down the most intelligent one in the room as far as wrestling goes. And Bo kind of put it on us that like he said earlier, I am a scrambler. I like to wrestle out of situations that some people would find uncomfortable. So I would just focus on that and on my feet. And then we broke it down to where one coach was top and bottom. One person was neutral. One person was scrambling. And then we would try to look around the room and find the athletes that fit that style the best. So we kind of bring them into groups like that rather than teaching everybody the same move and it only benefiting 10% of the room. We would try to use what we knew and what we had seen from watching them wrestle. So if a girl got put into our group, like I said, we just treated it exactly the same, that they're another athlete in the room. They're trying to get better. They're trying to win a state championship. And I really didn't see any difference in any of it.
And the thing is, we've been coaching these girls for like 4 years. So like, it wasn't like, it was just another day in the office. It's just now they get to go compete for like a state title. But like our whole coaching philosophy was kind of like, it's like, I always joke around, it's like the scene in Gladiator where they're like going out into this Coliseum the first time and they paint a color on them and like, oh, you get a shield, you get a sword. That's like how we were like, it's like, oh, you can scramble. Oh, you need to be more aggressive. Oh, you're a thrower. And like, we would just kind of like put them into our groups and like work on technique that we thought best worked for that wrestler. Because it's like, you can sit there and drill a sprawl with a kid. And like, if he just doesn't have the hips for it, like you're wasting a year of his life trying to figure out how to sprawl right. And so it was like, well, hey, maybe instead of sprawling, we just sit out on it. Or maybe instead of sprawling at all, we just like tie up and like go for throws. Like, let's try different stuff and like see what works best for them.
So now to the tough questions, okay?
That's what we've been waiting on.
So I am interested to hear, what would the state tournament be like if you ran it?
Ooh. All right. So I feel like some toes are about to be stepped on, but last year, first off, so if you tell us that there's not going to be a sectional tournament because of COVID, that's completely fine. Like when I wrestled, the sectional wasn't this super sectional thing. It was, you went to basically like your region. And I thought that worked great. I thought that was way better than what we have kind of adapted to now. So there are 4 regions for 7A? All right. So you have your 4 regions for the 2 in the north and 2 in the south. Those go to a region championship. If you want to take the top 4 or the top 2, like the state can decide on that. So if we're going to go with the 16-man bracket that we had this year, take the top 4 from each region. If you didn't make it because your region was super tough, or you lucked out and you weren't one of the 4, or you were one of the 4, even though there was somebody in another region that was technically better, that's just the way it works. But this going to track wrestling and pulling out, like, you could wrestle, I hate to use this word on here, but you could wrestle a scrub or a fish like 8 times out of your 9 matches the entire season, and you got a top 10 seed. Whereas somebody that wrestled very solid competition all year round and had maybe like a 600 record, you're out. You're out of the tournament. And does that mean that that person that has a 750 record or higher because he wrestled somebody in this one area and like should not have made it, in my opinion? Are they the most deserving to be that top 10 seed? Absolutely not. So the way that I would do it if I was in charge of it is I would go to that region play. So we have the region for the duels, just keep the same exact region. Have a tournament, a region tournament, go there. And if you even want to break it down before we get to state, then have like a region, a sectional, and then a state, or something like the northern schools do, or the northern area of the U.S. But this whole like going to track wrestling and breaking it down, that was very frustrating, especially telling a senior that, yeah, like you had a solid season. We wrestled some hard competitions, and honestly, if we would have wrestled some easier competitions, you probably would have made it. Like that is very tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, you look at our region, you've got Thompson, Hoover, Smiths, us, Central, Prattville. Like, that's a stacked region. And then you look at the other one, Spain Park's over there with like Spain Park, Hewitt, Trussville, Vestavia. Like, those are stacked regions. And then you go north or south of there, and it gets a little bit different. Not that I'm like calling out any regions, but like one of my main issues is like, you either should take all of them or make it a little bit mixed where it's not, you're never going to have like, for some reason the state of Alabama wants this north-south thing going on. And I have no idea if it's like a carryover from the Civil War or what's going on there, but like this north-south thing, like that doesn't, in wrestling, it shouldn't matter what region you're in. Like, it's the best wrestler. If I'm in, like I always think about it, it's like Arab is a perfect example of like, what a random place to be really good at wrestling. right? It's not like a dominant city or anything like that, but they have a really good program. So like, it doesn't matter if A-Rob existed in the North or South region, in my opinion, like it shouldn't. And so you either like, we should either go to like 64-man brackets for like the 7 or the 5, 6A massive, whatever thing they've created over there. Or for like in 7A, how hard would it be to be like, hey guys, we're gonna have a 32-man bracket. There's only 26 teams. First, like top seeds get buys. Like that's just how it goes. And like, just seed it off there. If you're not going to do that and you're going to make us do this, I agree with Cotter. Like we should go from our region, take 16. That was the best part of this year was 7A getting 16, which I've never understood why they're like, hey, you're the largest, most competitive classification. Could you take half the amount of qualifiers? Like a perfect example is last year we had Tyler Tanaka, who was a senior, placed the year before, makes it to the blood round, draws Devin Stone as like the seed, loses to Devin Stone by a couple points. We go down, we wrestle a kid from Hoover. He gets caught in a throw, gets put on his back, season over. State, like literally state placer from the previous year gets caught one time at that. And you're like, and you're kind of like, well, that's just the way it is. But in your mind, you're like, but if you were in a 5 or 6A school, you would still be going to state. And then you could just reset it all over again, which blows my mind that it's like in the biggest classification with the most wrestlers as far as like in the schools go, we're going to be like, we're going to take half as many. That is just mind-boggling to me. I would change that. My first change would be like every classification takes the same amount of qualifiers and places the same amount of people. Period.
Also, this year we take 16, which is what everybody else has taken the previous years. We have a 5th and 6th place match, get no medals. Like why even have that match if you're not gonna like recognize them or do it? Like we sent our 5th place wrestler to the table and he comes back empty-handed. He was like, "Where's my medal?" Or we were like, "Where's your medal?" And he was like, "I don't know. They said I don't get a medal." And I was like, "Then why do we even have this match?" Like, so I feel like if you're going to recognize them as placement matches, then they should have something to show that they won or lost that placement match. Just there was as many good things as I could say about the state and the way they handled COVID. There were some things that were very frustrating. Another thing that, and I feel like I'm going down a rabbit hole, but this whole season we've talked about social distancing. We get to the state tournament, and if you are not wrestling and you have to warm up, we're putting everybody that's warming up in one area. So there is no social distancing over there. You don't know where anybody's been through. So we tried to go into the hallway and have our guys warming up kind of secluded away from everybody. And then some people from the state told us that, no, we couldn't do that we needed to be in this area with everybody else. And the entire year they've told us, make sure you're keeping your 6 foot, keep social distancing the whole time, wear your mask. But once it gets to state, it's like, nah, just throw everybody in one spot. We're just forgetting about it.
I'll be honest. I was at 5, 6A state helping John Carroll out, and they were packed like sardines on the far side of that wall. There were probably 64 kids. You know where the little warm-up mat is on the far side?
Yeah.
64 kids right there. It was terrible. But okay. Now I do have to ask, who won today?
We actually didn't keep score.
Yeah, we didn't keep score.
It was just more like, hey, we're really out of shape and we're gonna walk 18 because we're gonna try to get healthy again. And then by about hole 15, we were like,
this is a terrible idea.
This is a terrible idea. Why do we walk? So
that's how I play. I play with my stepdad, and we'll have fun because I'm terrible at golf.
Yeah.
So
we'll start getting more competitive once we have a few more rounds under us. So.
Okay, so next up, give me your top 5 singlets in the state of Alabama.
Okay, we're one, like hands down.
Hands down. We have the best singles in the state, but we'll exclude us from the list because it's biased.
Okay.
But as long as everybody knows that hands down, we have the best singlets. But
I feel like Thompson's is like, there's this unique, well, they have like, everybody knows it's Thompson, so they've made their way in there because there's anything, just it's a plain simple design, but it's something about it with the state flag on it and everything like that. I really like Thompson's. And
the new one they have with like the T, the white back with the T, because that's what we talked about is like when we designed our stuff and we started like redoing Auburn, the big thing is like we wanted to showcase that blue A. And the whole idea was because Thompson is a red T, we want to be the blue A. And so like when you see that T, you know it's Thompson. And we want to be like, when you see that A, you know it's Auburn. Like that's like our thought process. I think Spain Park showed out with some new ones this year that were really good looking.
Their final singlet was.
I love that white one with like the SP on the side. I'm a big, but we love that baby blue. So I think that's a good color combination.
I was pretty mad I didn't get to wear that. They had a new singlet this year that I think they were wearing. Not the final ones I wore, but whichever one they didn't, I was a little sad I didn't get to wear it. But.
Yeah. I did not like the old Adidas one that you guys had with like the Penn State kind of like striping across. I think that Penn State look is just too overdone. Are we going to stick with 7A? Is that where we need to go with this? Like,
I don't know. I think Holtfield's got a pretty decent looking singlet over in Montgomery, but that's about it.
I don't think I've even seen theirs.
I haven't seen it.
It's like green with like an H. I don't know. It looks like a checkered pattern almost. I'd say Hoover's. Hoover's is pretty iconic.
Hoover's. Their gray one is beautiful. Like that one.
Orange piping.
Yeah.
Oh, so good looking. Matter of fact, that's why we went to we saw there was grays, and that's why we picked up the gray this year is because we use gray, but like we've never put on it. Like that was one of our main things. Hewitt has a pretty good looking singlet this year. They went to that Under Armour. They have a pretty solid looking one. I love the Bob Jones with like the American colors going on with like the BJ like that.
You also like the Huntsville, the Skyline.
I do like the Skyline. The Skyline.
I'm being serious.
Yeah, I like the Skyline one a lot. I just don't like the Panther attached to the Skyline, and I'm not a big fan of that one. But and then I mean, you got to give Vestavius some props on theirs. Like the Rebel one, like it's a solid logo. They kind of like definitely like in a color scheme of red, white, and blue, which is so many schools. Like they do a pretty good job of like standing out on that one. And then I really like Daphne's this year. The purple with like the yellow, which is a weird color combination that like, especially if it's not like old gold with that purple. I think they did a pretty good job of pulling that one off. So I'd probably say those are like my top program ones in 7A that I've seen. I'm trying to think if I think of any other schools that I really like that's like smaller.
I'm typically not a fan of the white, like all white, just because I feel like Lehigh kind of brought that out when I was in high school and everybody went to it. So now it's kind of like one of those things. Like Lehigh, the university, not like Lehigh.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to think. I was picturing Darian Cruz with that white singlet on.
Yeah,
that was pretty dope.
But I feel like white, kind of what we were talking about earlier with the whole stripe across. Like once you find like a really good singlet, it seems that everybody tends to go to it. So white was like the big thing for the longest time, and like a lot of our boys even we have this. It's pretty bad tiger stripe one. But it's all white and
it's hideous. From like way back in the day, all these tiger stripes. They're not even like they're like mismatched. They like go like this. Like it's awful.
But something about it, like all the boys want, and I'm like stand out in the finals. Like if everybody's wearing white, you want to be the one wearing something different. Another one that always gets to me, and this is because this is a Jordan Countryman thing, but somebody wanted to have our gray singlet, which is kind of silver, be our final singlet. And Jordan Countryman told me when I was in high school that you never wear a silver singlet to the finals because it's almost guaranteeing that you're going to get second place. So that is something that will never happen at Auburn. We will never have a gray or a silver final singlet, but
now, the school, I think, who had the cleanest singlets, who could have, like, with their logo combination and colors, Mountain Brook. Like, that old gold and green with the Spartan helmet, like, that is a classy combination that you
Or if you went with their the suit of arms.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we both love the Princeton ones with, like, their coat of arms on the front from the school. Our coat of arms looks like a 3-year-old drew it, so we don't use it. But we're like, man, if we could just like draw a cooler logo for our coat of arms, it would be awesome. We'd be all over it.
But yeah, Princeton does have that really dope coat of arms. Just in the...
Yeah.
So your email is Crossbow Gaming. What do you specialize in?
So I own a chain of game stores. So there's one in Uber called Gear Gaming, and we're about to open one down here in Opelika in Auburn. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Go ahead and side.
Yeah. Quick tag. Go hit up my stores. So I can keep playing golf.
And then I heard something about some Oklahoma athlete getting messed up because he picked a fight with some guy with cauliflower ear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Rule number 1, never mess with someone with cauliflower ear. That's just how it should be. Like, we always tell our kids, like, we don't want you to like be violent or anything like that, but like there should be a show of respect in the hallway for a wrestler, as far as like you should know, like, hey, maybe not mess with that kid. So and that's kind of like you joked around earlier about the Auburn thing. One of the things that we like to pride ourselves on, we have a lot of athletes that came to us and like they were not athletes, not athletic at all. And like Sean McGowan is a perfect example. We jokingly call him Hawk from Cobra Kai. Because like when he showed up, like we were like, and now he is like probably the meanest wrestler that we have on our team, like to the point that we're like, hey man, like don't cost us a team point. That'd be great. Like he's just like we joke around. We're like, he went from having his lunch money stolen to taking lunch money at this point. Like we're just like, calm down. So
I feel like some of the guys around the room too, they're like honestly wanting to get it. Like they'll walk up to me at the end of the practice. They're like, my ear kind of hurts. What does it look like? Like, it looks like an ear. Like,
if you really want it, I'll take 2 water bottles and we'll make your mom kind of question what the heck just happened.
Yeah.
So I got to ask, whose coaching staff would win a wrestle off, best 2 or 3? Whose coaching staff?
So we're going full coaching staff.
Full 2. We got our best 3, which would be you, me, Tanner.
Okay.
Which is a very solid lineup.
I was about to say Tanner was All-American. He can take the best out of. So our heavyweight that plays third at state this year, who went in as the 1 seed. I watched multiple times this season. Tanner, who weighs 170,
yes.
maybe. He took him down like multiple times, and our heavyweight was all of 275. So
man-child. Like.
So Tanner can just take whoever he wants. So that's a 6 right there. I will do my stalling that Bo calls it, which I call wrestling. I will make it. I'm either making it a pin in the first round, or I'm going to stall my way all the way through 3. And so if it doesn't end in the first, then it's a decision. So that could flip flop depending on which school we're going with. So then it just ends up to be Bo.
Yeah, and I'm thrown or be thrown. So like we'll see how it goes. Like I've got like a good solid 45, maybe a minute 15 in me. As far as like solid coaching staffs, we've always joked around with Thompson.
Yeah.
We've become really close. Thompson and I have always joked around that we'd love to see that coaching staff right off. They've got some X factors. You got Pike over there, he's quality. You got Wes Barnes, Sean. You got Bullington, who would match up against me. Bullington used to coach at Auburn, and we've always joked around about who would get it. So I think that would be like the main competition. I'd like to see the Thompson brothers personally. Like I want to see them out there on the mats with us. They're a little older, but I feel like they got that old man strength still going. You can't sleep on Jeff Coate. He's literally the biggest, like, swollest guy I've ever seen in my life. So Corey's got that one.
I've still literally never taken Tyler Countryman down. So that's another one that he owns me.
If the Countryman brothers came back and started coaching again together, like you might as well, we'll throw in the towel. It's wrestling for second. I feel like at that point.
I don't know. I've wrestled Coach Pike over at Thompson. I wrestled him once, and there's a reason I only wrestled him once. He was in the Warrior Room, and my first day I wrestled him.
Brutal.
That was not fun. I've never been torn apart like that in my entire life. Like
now, I will say that.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I will say that we may lose Coach Tanner at the end of the year. He may be moving away with his girlfriend, so that definitely takes a hit to us.
Yeah.
Then it's just me and Cotter, and like we got old man Joe with his mustache, but like I mean he's like pushing 60, so I mean I don't know how well it's gonna go for us.
Is he the coach over the middle school program?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's been there for longer than most of us have been alive. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this though: Auburn Junior High will come to Birmingham and whip on just about everybody. And I was always like, "What? It's Auburn, guys! What?"
He's a man of very few words, but one technique. He's gonna crossface cradle you to death. Like we get kids that come up and like that's our biggest thing is like our 9th and 10th graders when they come in from that program. We started practicing together, so it's a little bit different now. But back in the day, it used to be like our kids would come in, these young freshmen, and we'd start them, and then they'd like, take them down, immediately go to the crossface cradle, and we're like, just run the half. Like, he's literally like on his side, and they're like, no, we're going to rip this crossface cradle. We're like, oh my gosh, stop.
And go back to like what we were talking about previously, that is something that we forgot to mention, that was a benefit of COVID that we never would have known would have benefited our program. But Joe would come up to Tanner and myself during practice when he was teaching the middle school, because we were all in the same room, to help with cross-contamination of basketball. So we were at the high school, like at the true high school, and we brought all the wrestling stuff to what used to be the high school, but now is the junior high. And so we had all three teams technically, because we had the junior high or B team or whatever you want to call them, the middle school team, and us. And Joe would walk over with questions about, he was teaching the first year or the middle school program, and he was saying, hey, I'm thinking about teaching this. What do y'all think? And I was like, honestly, it's a great move for middle school, but once they get up to varsity, we're throwing that one out the door. Like, it's just not going to work there. And he was like, all right, I'm not even going to waste their time with them learning it then. He was like, we're going to learn stuff that is going to feed into y'all. So that was one of the things that we would have never really seen the benefits of, because we probably would have gone back to just being in our own location. But it worked out well.
Also, you got to give, Vestavia would probably be up there. You got T. I imagine T's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then Lamy is huge. Like, he is a massive human being. And I don't know if I want to wrestle him, but I would. I don't know who they're going to bring for their third, but like, we'll take the forfeit if they don't have the third there. But maybe they could be hiding one.
Who'd be their third now? Because I don't think Seegers is coaching over there anymore.
No, I think he's like
the AD, isn't he? Yeah.
Kind of old too. So
yeah. If Seeger wants to step on, like, we'll let him take on the third. We'll throw Joe out there. I'll take Joe on Seegers. Like, we'll take that bet.
We did have a coach's wrestling match at practice that did not end too well, but I was in a boot for state. We went out, and me and the guy that wrestled at Duke, we were wrestling, and we were doing what do you call it? Because I call it something completely different. What was it? Fight night is what you call it?
Yeah, Friday night.
So we called it Bull in the Ring when I was in high school, but we call it Friday night fight night, where you just you pick a partner, and at the very last, Bo was like, all right, Tanner and Corey, y'all are out there. And I was like, all right, not ready for this, but we were doing a minute goes, so I made it all the way up until like 55 seconds, and he has the strongest cradle I have ever felt in my life. Like, and he went all weight on my back knee, like, because we were in tripod position. He went all weight on my back knee, and my foot stuck in the mat, and ankle just, it was
like crushed him like a can, like from full standing position. Like, it was just like, oh God.
So maybe this coaches tournament isn't the wisest thing that we've come up with, but I feel like it'd be entertaining nonetheless.
Look, I'm just saying, if you guys will facilitate it, Auburn's putting in 3. All right, we're already in. So consider this a call out to any coaching staff. Like, we're ready for the all-state coaching tournament. Like, I feel like it should be the highlight at the end of the state tournament. Like, you get a problem with like another coaching staff, like, we just take it on the mat and we'll just call it out there.
TJ can ref.
Just bite.
Yeah, we'll let TJ ref. He's gonna be the best one for it because he's gonna laugh the whole time.
Who's TJ?
What's TJ's last name? He coaches down here, refs down here.
What is his last name?
Coleman, right?
Yeah, TJ Coleman.
Yeah, he's like Ken's right-hand man down here. But
who's Ken?
Head of the ref association in the Montgomery area.
Oh, okay. I know who Jeff Saxton is.
Okay, yeah.
There you go. I remember Sammy because I was wrestling when I wrestled Cameron last year. And honestly, I don't know what happened at the end, but Sammy's like, I'm assuming he hit his head and he'd already had a concussion.
He got concussed up in Huntsville.
Yeah. Yeah, there was some. We took him up to Huntsville last year, and there was this kid in Huntsville that
he was from Tennessee, and he was a man.
Like, Cam is a large human being. He was not as large as he was this year. He was like 240 last year. He's like 270 this year. But that kid literally just picked him up and suplexed him over his head like he was like a 106. And I was just like, like mouth wide open. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that was horrifying. The kid ended up getting DQ'd for an illegal slam and like was so upset. But I was like, I mean, you literally just suplexed him on his neck. So I don't know what to tell you. Like, can't do that.
No, I mean,
he looked like he was made in a laboratory. Like, I mean, unreal.
You could see his abs through his singlet at heavyweight.
Yeah, it was DK Metcalf, but in like wrestling. Like,
that was that kid from Coffee. He's like a Division I track and field guy at Tennessee right now. He's insane.
Not shocked. Yeah. I mean, I was just like, when we walked on the mat, I was like, that's not human. Like, that was made in a lab.
Did you see? He did a celebration last year at state. He did a backflip, and I'm like, I couldn't do that. I tried. Fell on my back. It is what it is. So I gotta ask, what is your predictions for the state tournament coming up?
The not too early are the way too early predictions, huh?
So Vestavia and Thompson, they're up there. I mean, like Vestavia just won a state championship. They didn't lose too many, did they? I
think their team's pretty young. I think it's a lot of sophomores.
They lost. I think they lost the heavyweight, but as far as I can remember, that's about it. Thompson, they have Warrior that they always reproducing quality wrestlers.
Hewitt is going to be really good. Like, this is the year that Hewitt could break into that top two. I think I coached that group in middle school. Like the Reeves brothers, all those guys, like Zimmerman. You talk about like they're going to be a real stacked senior class, so they have a pretty good run.
Spain Park
graduated a lot, I think.
Did they really?
Yeah, a lot.
Okay.
I think them and Hoover both graduated a lot. You can never count Huntsville and Bob Jones. Like, they're both very solid programs. Jeff Coates probably going to have Daphne going pretty hard next year. I think he had a young team this year, so they'll have like a year experience back up. Baker.
I was about to say that, although like they didn't have the showing at the individual state when we went down for the first round of duels, that like we never tell the kids like, oh, we think this is going to be easier than what it should be. But you think about a team that was non-existent 3 years ago and relatively all new wrestlers. We thought it would be much easier than what it was. And it just shows a lot about their coaching, the fact that it was a very close match. At the end, I was having to do math in my head, trying to figure out, like, do we have this? Like, are we going to make it to the next round? So,
and he's a PE teacher, so that was real rough on him.
Yeah.
So, and I teach history, so I don't even do numbers. But then you've also got like in our area, I think we'll be pretty good. We have a young 9th grade group that's going to be sophomores. A lot of them qualify for state. And then our junior class, which is like Sean McGowan, some of those other guys, they're going to be our new senior leaders. And I think we could have a pretty good team. Smiths is going to have a really good team. I think they only graduated one person.
And Devin's returning.
You got Devin Stone returning, who is just a monster out there. So I think those are all good. I mean, Central's up and coming again too, which is really good. So I think next year our division is going to be our region is going to be really tight. So that's our not too early. It'll be, I mean, of course, Auburn 1, probably Thompson, Vestavia, Biden for 2 behind us. And then the rest of the field, they can just take what they got. Hewitt maybe coming up there, the 3rd. Who knows?
Of course. Awesome. Well, before we go, do you guys have anything to say to my viewers?
Make sure to follow us on Instagram.
Oh, that as well. But the Swede Umbach tournament next year it's in the Coliseum, so the old basketball arena for the university. We are trying to get it to be the largest like non-state type of tournament in the Southeast. So we're trying to get teams from Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, everything. Like,
yeah, we have 26 confirmed teams. We're trying to go to 32. And we're taking like application from like teams from Oklahoma, Tennessee, Florida, like all these top tiers. So the idea is like after the first year, the hope is that this is going to be like the hardest tournament in the Southeast for high school wrestling. And so we've got like I said, we have the Coliseum, which is 10,000 plus seating, 8 mats on the floor. Like, it's going to be spectacular. So
and eventually might even make it like a best of the best. Like, even though like your team has entered the tournament, like not everybody from your team comes. Like, you kind of have to qualify for that tournament.
So
that's pretty dope. Okay, well, obviously, thank you guys so much for doing this. And well, bye guys.
Bye. Have a good